Sudan is both an African and Arab country, with Arabic being the most widely spoken language. Over 97% of the population are Sunni Muslims with a small Christian minority. Sudan is growing at a quick rate of 2.42% per year. This rate adds over 1 million people to the population every year. Because the fertility rate is so high, a very large portion of the population is under 15 years old, putting additional strains on social services, especially education and health. The country is dominated by Muslims, most of whom speak Arabic and are for the most part ethnically mixed. Despite a common language and religion, the people are highly differentiated in their mode of livelihood and comprise city dwellers, village farmers, and pastoral nomads. The tribal system has largely disintegrated in urban areas and settled villages, however, and retains its strength only among the nomads of the plains who raise cattle, sheep, and camels. Sudan, country located in northeastern Africa. The name Sudan derives from the Arabic expression Bilad al-Sudan, land of the blacks, by which medieval Arab geographers referred to the settled African countries that began at the southern edge of the Sahara. For more than a century, Sudan, first as a colonial holding, then as an independent country, included its neighbor South Sudan, home to many sub-Saharan African ethnic groups. Prior to the secession of the South in 2011, Sudan was the largest African country, with an area that represented more than 8% of the African continent and almost 2% of the world's total land area. Sudan's capital, Khartoum, is located roughly in the center of the country, at the junction of the Blue Nile and White Nile rivers. It is part of the largest urban area in Sudan and is a center of commerce as well as of government. It borders the Central African Republic to the southwest, Chad to the west, Libya to the northwest, Egypt to the north, the Red Sea to the east, Eritrea and Ethiopia to the southeast, and South Sudan to the south. Sudan has a population of 50 million people as of 2024 and occupies 1,886,068 square kilometers, 728,215 square miles, making it Africa's third largest country by area and the third largest by area in the Arab League. It was the largest country by area in Africa and the Arab League until the secession of South Sudan in 2011, since then both titles have been held by Algeria. Sudan's capital and most populous city is Khartoum. After Sudan became independent, the Ghavar Nimiri regime began Islamist rule. This exacerbated the rift between the Islamic North, the seat of the government, and the animists and Christians in the south. Differences in language, religion, and political power erupted in a civil war between government forces, influenced by the National Islamic Front, NIF, and the Southern rebels, whose most influential faction was the Sudan People's Liberation Army, SPLA, which eventually led to the independence of South Sudan in 2011. Between 1989 and 2019, a 30-year-long military dictatorship led by Omar al-Bashir ruled Sudan and committed widespread human rights abuses, including torture, persecution of minorities, alleged sponsorship of global terrorism, and ethnic genocide in Darfur from 2003 to 2020. Overall, the regime killed an estimated 300,000 to 400,000 people. Protests erupted in 2018, demanding Bashir's resignation, which resulted in a coup d'état on April 11, 2019 and Bashir's imprisonment. Sudan is currently embroiled in a civil war between two rival factions, the Sudanese Armed Forces, SAF, and the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, RSF. Islam was Sudan's state religion and Islamic laws were applied from 1983 until 2020 when the country became a secular state. Sudan is a least developed country and among the poorest countries in the world, ranking 170th on the Human Development Index as of 2024 and 185th by nominal GDP per capita. Its economy largely relies on agriculture due to international sanctions and isolation, as well as a history of internal instability and factional violence. The large majority of Sudan is dry and over 60% of Sudan's population lives in poverty. Sudan is a member of the United Nations, Arab League, African Union, CUMSA, Non-Aligned Movement, and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. The country's name Sudan is a name given historically to the large Sahel region of West Africa to the immediate west of modern-day Sudan. Historically, Sudan referred to both the geographical region, stretching from Senegal on the Atlantic coast to northeast Africa and the modern Sudan. Since 2011, Sudan is also sometimes referred to as North Sudan to distinguish it from South Sudan. Since ancient times the Sudan region has been an arena for interaction between the cultural traditions of Africa and those of the Mediterranean world. Islam and the Arabic language achieved ascendancy in many northern parts of the region, while older African languages and cultures predominated in the south. The country became independent in 1956 and has had numerous changes in government since then. Successive regimes found it difficult to win general acceptance from the diverse political constituencies. An early conflict arose between those northern leaders who hoped to impose unity upon the nation through the vigorous extension of Islamic law and culture to all parts of the country and those who opposed this policy. The latter included the majority of Southerners and those Northerners who favored a secular government. Sudan is situated in North Africa, with an 853 kilometers 530 miles coastline bordering the Red Sea. It has land borders with Egypt, Eritrea, Ethiopia, South Sudan, the Central African Republic, Chad, and Libya. With an area of 1,886,068 square kilometers 728,215 square miles, it is the third largest country on the continent, after Algeria and Democratic Republic of the Congo, and the 15th largest in the world. The Blue Nile and White Nile rivers meet in Khartoum to form the Nile, which flows northwards through Egypt to the Mediterranean Sea. The Blue Nile's course through Sudan is nearly 800 kilometers 497 miles long and is joined by the Dinder and Rahad rivers between Sennar and Khartoum. The White Nile within Sudan has no significant tributaries. There are several dams on the Blue and White Niles. Among them are the Sennar and Rose Ayers dams on the Blue Nile, and the Jebel Alia Dam on the White Nile. There is also Lake Nubia on the Sudanese-Egyptian border. Rich mineral resources are available in Sudan including asbestos, chromite, cobalt, copper, gold, granite, gypsum, iron, kaolin, lead, manganese, mica, natural gas, nickel, petroleum, silver, tin, uranium and zinc. In 2015, Sudan's gold production was 82 metric tons. Nearer the River Nile, there are well-irrigated farms growing cash crops. The sunshine duration is very high all over the country but especially in deserts where it can soar to over 4,000 hours per year. Desertification is a serious problem in Sudan. There is also concern over soil erosion. Agricultural expansion, both public and private, has proceeded without conservation measures. The consequences have manifested themselves in the form of deforestation, soil desiccation, and the lowering of soil fertility and the water table. The nation's wildlife is threatened by poaching. As of 2001, 21 mammal species and 9 bird species are endangered, as well as 2 species of plants. Critically endangered species include the walled rap, northern white rhinoceros, Tora hartibest, slender-horned gazelle, and hawksbill turtle. The Sahara oryx has become extinct in the wild. In 2010, Sudan was considered the 17th fastest-growing economy in the world, and the rapid development of the country largely from oil profits even when facing international sanctions was noted by the New York Times in a 2006 article. Because of the secession of South Sudan, which contained about 75% of Sudan's oil fields, Sudan entered a phase of stagflation. GDP growth slowed to 3.4% in 2014, 3.1% in 2015 and was projected to recover slowly to 3.7% in 2016 while inflation remained as high as 21.8% as of 2015. Even with the oil profits before the secession of South Sudan, Sudan still faced formidable economic problems, and its growth was still a rise from a very low level of per capita output. The economy of Sudan has been steadily growing over the 2000s, and according to a World Bank report, the overall growth in GDP in 2010 was 5.2% compared to 2009 growth of 4.2%. This growth was sustained even during the war in Darfur and period of southern autonomy preceding South Sudan's independence. Oil was Sudan's main export, with production increasing dramatically during the late 2000s, in the years before South Sudan gained independence in July 2011. With rising oil revenues, the Sudanese economy was booming, with a growth rate of about 9% in 2007. Most Sudanese wear either traditional or Western attire. A traditional garb widely worn by Sudanese men is the jalabia, which is a loose-fitting, long-sleeved, collarless ankle-length garment also common to Egypt. The jalabia is often accompanied by a large turban and a scarf, and the garment may be white, colored, striped, and made of fabric varying in thickness, depending on the season of the year and personal preferences. The most common dress for Sudanese women is the thobe or thobe, pronounced tobe in Sudanese dialect. The thobe is a white or colorful long, one-piece cloth that women wrap around their inner garments, usually covering their head and hair. Due to a 1991 penal code, public order law, women were not allowed to wear trousers in public, because it was interpreted as an obscene outfit. The punishment for wearing trousers could be up to 40 lashes, but after being found guilty in 2009, one woman was fined the equivalent of $200 instead. Like in many countries, football is the most popular sport also in Sudan. The Sudan Football Association was founded in 1936 and thus it became one of the oldest football associations to exist in Africa. However, before the foundation of the Football Association, Sudan had started experiencing football brought to the country by the British colonizers since early 20th century via Egypt. Other Sudanese clubs founded at that time include Al Hilal Omdurman, Al Merrikh, which led to popularization of football in the country. The Khartoum League became the first national league to be played in Sudan, laying ground for the future development of Sudanese football. Since September 2019, there has been an official national league for women's football clubs that started on the basis of informal women's clubs since the beginning of the 2000s. In 2021, the Sudan women's national football team participated for the first time in the Arab Women's Cup, held in Cairo, Egypt. Sudan's national beach volleyball team competed at the 2018-2020 CAVB Beach Volleyball Continental Cup in both the women's and the men's section. In June 2022, Patricia Seif El-Din El-Hajj, the first Sudanese woman wrestler to participate in an African championship, was photographed by Reuters photographer Mohammed Nuruldin Abdullah, as she got ready to travel to Nigeria to prepare for the 2024 Summer Olympic Games. 1/3 of the population live in cities or towns, the remaining 70% are rural. Khartoum boasts beautiful, tree-lined streets and gardens. It is also home to a large number of immigrants from rural areas, who come looking for work and who have erected shanty towns on the city's fringes. The majority of Sudan's major cities either lie along the Nile River or the Red Sea, which makes sense since so much of the rest of the country is desert. The largest city of Omdurman has a population of 2,395,013. Omdurman is in very close proximity to the nation's capital of Khartoum, which has a population of 1,974,647. Because these cities are so close, their populations are often lumped together into a cumulative greater metropolitan population of 7,380,479. Some other notable cities are Nyala, Port Sudan, El Obeid, and Kassala, none of which have populations over 500,000. Sudan is rich in arable land, natural resources, a young workforce, and agricultural opportunities. Sudan's rich endowment of natural resources, including natural gas, gold, silver, chromite, manganese, gypsum, mica, zinc, iron, lead, uranium, copper, kaolin, cobalt, granite, nickel, tin, and aluminum offer significant economic potential. However, these resources have yet to be fully realized. Moreover, the secession of the oil-rich South in 2011 initiated a declining economic trend. IMF figures indicate that GDP halved between 2011 and 2019. The 75% decline in oil income resulted in both a trade and fiscal deficit, which led to a substantial devaluation of the currency and rising inflation. Sudan's exports are dominated by gold, sesame seed, livestock, crude oil, and ground nuts, and accounted for 82% of all exports in 2019. Historically, agriculture has remained the main source of income and employment in Sudan, employing or providing livelihoods for more than 60% of the population. However, neglect of traditional smallholder agriculture and nomadic animal husbandry saw the sector's share of GDP dip in recent years. This trend, combined with the exodus from the conflict or poverty-affected areas of the country, has contributed to a high rate of unorganized urbanization in and around the larger cities. While Sudan saw a 142.9% increase in gross national income per capita between 1990 and 2019, the value of the HDI increased only 54.1%. Progress on social and legislative reform has been substantive since the establishment of the new transitional government. Achievements thus far include outlawing female genital mutilation, FGM, committing to 40% representation of women in Sudan's new parliament, repealing restrictive public order laws, improving government budget transparency, and systematically moving state-owned enterprises under the control of the Ministry of Finance. Sudan is geographically located at the crossroads of Sub-Saharan Africa and the Middle East and stretches across the Red Sea. Sudan shares borders with 7 countries including Libya and Egypt to the north, Chad to the west, the Central African Republic to the southwest, South Sudan to the south, Ethiopia to the southeast and Eritrea to the east. The White and Blue Niles meet in Khartoum, the capital city of Sudan, and merge to become the Nile River that flows all the way to the Mediterranean Sea via Egypt. Sudan has a Sahelian belt with the desert in the far north, fertile land in the Nile valleys, the Gezira, and across the rest of the country from Darfur to Kassala via Blue Nile and Kordofan states for farming and livestock herding. The country is sparsely populated and shares international borders with Egypt, Eritrea, Ethiopia, South Sudan, Central African Republic, Chad, and Libya. The River Nile traverses the country from south to north, providing a crucial water source, while the Red Sea washes close to 900 kilometers of the eastern coast, making Sudan a sea bridge between Africa and the Middle East. Thank you for watching this video.